Hey class, this is Mr. Clark, and these are the video lecture notes for History 20, Chapter 5, The Greek World. Next slide. Quote, "Captive Greece has conquered her rude conqueror," the Roman poet Horace famously wrote in the late 1st century BCE. That meaning that Greek culture had a great deal of influence on the later civilization of Rome. Next slide. This comment about the deep influence of Greek culture on the Roman world, even after the Roman conquest of Greece was complete, continued to be the case well after the days of Horace. Next slide. Ultimately, the impact of the Hellenization of the Mediterranean and the Middle East, which started with Alexander's conquests, lasted far beyond the Hellenistic kingdoms he founded. Next slide. The Greek language continued to be the language of the Eastern Roman Empire for centuries. Next slide. In some respects, this spread of the Greeks and their civilization ultimately changed what it meant to be Greek, or rather, it created a more universal Greek identity. Next slide. At the core of the Greek traditions were the epic tales of Homer. And one of those tales involved the Trojan War, a legendary war fought between Greece and the city-state of Troy. Next slide. For instance, the Homeric values that were likely the reason for the minimal advances in technology in the Greek world, as honor was more important than military success at all cost. And here is the legendary hero Achilles with the arrow in his heel. Next slide. The two Greek city-states of Athens and Sparta emerged as the most powerful by 500 BCE. And here's Athens and here's Sparta. Next slide. The Greek city-states joined forces to defend themselves during the Persian Wars, which occurred around 500 BCE. Next slide. The work of the philosophers Plato and Aristotle in the 5th century BCE set the stage for subsequent intellectual development. Next slide. The Greek civilization was weakened by the divisive Peloponnesian Wars, which lasted between 431 and 404 BC. The Peloponnesian Wars were basically a civil war that occurred between the Greek city-states. Next slide. Philip of Macedonia conquered the Greek peninsula around 340 BCE. Next slide. Alexander the Great expanded the empire created by his father and spread Greek culture throughout the known world. And this is a map that shows you Alexander's conquests and the extent of his empire. Next slide. Even as the Greek-speaking portions of the Roman Empire eventually turned to Christianity, they could not abandon their classical roots. Next slide. And that's it for notes for Chapter 5.